session, well, he gave us some homework, your colleague, and we already have a list of works that we would like to see. However, my colleague and I thought that maybe for the time being, we first have to focus on our application. So it might be a bit of a hassle now to academic work. Yeah, I'm moving to another network, so it will be okay, I guess, I hope. Just a moment. We'll use this network and there we go. Okay, great. Now it's supposed to be much more stable. Okay, so as a grand season within the academic world, so it's not the time to create a new cooperations. Is the internet okay? Okay, so thank you for your efforts anyway, and maybe we can follow up on it in a few months. So now I want us, this is, we really are approaching the last lap of this course. And I want to check into some of the more advanced tools that we have nowadays in order to achieve better writing and better synopsis, abstracting of works. And this is where I'd like for us all to understand what it means nowadays to be a bachelor student, a BA student. Now, in recent years, the and I'm talking about a decade ago and earlier, the distinction between graduate students and undergraduate students was crystal clear. The distinction was that undergraduate students, bachelors, are supposed to get access to academic materials, to know how to create their own bibliography, to understand and read some work. When it came to graduate students, master students were expected to be able to achieve a great knowledge and acquaintance with a specific field of literature and to analyze it in a sufficient way that they can read the material in their field in a critical position. Graduate students, when it came to PhD students, dissertation students, they were already expected to be active within the research community. That is not only to be able to analyze, to summarize works of others, and to know how to implement them in their own work, but also to be able to achieve a form of responsible and original research to contribute to the community of academic scholarship. Okay, so basically speaking, being a bachelor's and having an MA was not any form or did not expect one to have any form of sufficient scholarly abilities over than being able to find and summarize literature that was composed by others. Being a doctoral student meant that you are expected to be a contributor, to be part of the community that also not only reads what others wrote and criticize that or understand it, but also to compose works that will be indeed learned by others. And these works will also be part of the community. That was a distinction. Nowadays, frankly, I think it's a pile of joke. No one actually expects BA students and, of course, MA students only to be able to understand what others wrote, mainly because you don't need to, okay? Because it's quite easy nowadays to analyze, to find, analyze, and be critical, I'm sorry, of other works composed by others. AI does it better than you will. Of course, you are extremely competent. Don't take this personally, but generally speaking, AI has its algorithms and has the ability to abstractize and to summarize and to create very good synopsis of other works. So while it's quite clear that the missions that the past gave to students are now completely irrelevant, it still is quite unclear what the new missions should look like. So within academic circles, it's not yet clear. And nowadays, when people describe or try to describe what the mission of a BA student, of an MA student should look like, I find it quite perplexing because no one knows. So if no one knows, how can we expect you to know? So what I think could be the new mission is that we expect you all to be able to find works and to analyze them, or at least to tell someone else, some machine, to analyze them. What I want you to do is to compare. That is, because, as I said numerous times before, I know every one of you works with AI. I expect you all to work with AI. I want you now to go into a nice mission. I think it's quite funny, or at least enjoyable. And what I want you is to find two papers on a specific subject. I don't care how you find them. You can use AI to find them. But then I want you to use two different LLMs, okay? Be it Claude, be it Gemini, be it ChatGPT, be it Copilot, whatever you want, Perplexity, whatever. And after you let these two LLMs create a synopsis of these papers, I want you, as a human being, to criticize and to find the different tendencies between these two LLMs. Am I clear? Is the mission okay? Is it understood?
Yeah, but
Yotam?
what do you mean synopsis? Do you
Okay.
mean yeah,
Okay. Okay. Just a moment. What I mean is that I want you to let the LLM read the paper and give you the highlights, give you the major ideas, the major theme, three best or most important arguments, and bottom line. That's synopsis. Okay. It's an abstract. Okay. But it's an abstract which, as opposed to regular abstracts that are he says, I say, synopsis is more structured. It's these are the arguments. This is the hypothesis. This is the bottom line. I want you something like that. So, what I want you to do is to find two papers. In a moment, I'll tell you about what. Okay, I want you to trace these papers and find them in full text. I want you to give them to two different LLMs to get the synopsis from these two LLMs. And then I want you, as a human being, to criticize and to understand the difference, if there is, if you can find one, between these two LLMs. I think that is a more relevant mission to BA students nowadays because it forces you, on the one hand, to use the tools that are available nowadays, but also it forces you not to accept their words as the words of God given to us by Sinai, from Sinai. It expects you to be critical of the work being done by the machine. Cam, are you with us? Is that okay?
Sure. I'm
Okay,
with
great.
you.
So let's find something that is, I think, not in the realm of any of your works. Let's look into some of the. Okay, I know. Responses, okay, in the land of Israel to the 1947 legislation by the UN to divide Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. Okay, in 29th of November 1947, the UN declared that it accepts the proposition to divide the land of Palestine into two individual states, a Jewish state and an Arab state, and also part of it will be an under international mandate. Okay, that's a given. Now, numerous papers were composed dealing with, yeah, thank you, Yotam, numerous responses to the 1947 UN Declaration. Numerous papers dealt with how the Yishuv, the Jewish population in Palestine, reacted to this declaration by the UN. I want you to find two different papers dealing with how the Yishuv or parts of the Yishuv dealt with this declaration. I want you to give them to two different LLMs, and then I want you to compare how these two different LLMs created a synopsis of these papers. Is the mission clear?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, so let's go to work. We'll convene in a few moments. Nah, I'll give you more than a few moments. Everything okay?
I'm still searching for papers.
Oh, okay, okay, great. Everything okay? Oh, that sounds good. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I just ran the prompts on Gemini Notebook 11 Cowork. So I'm just reading it right now, like the outputs.
Okay, okay. Cam, are you okay? You doing fine? Please tell me you're also learning something from this. Just tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, I think I have like two sources. Cowork is still thinking, but
Oh,
I
okay.
have Notebook LM and Gemini.
Great. Okay, so that's enough. Cam, did you manage to do anything about this or? Okay, never mind. Okay, so Yotam, just a moment. I want to finish my own. There we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, please go ahead. What do you find?
Okay, so I choose two articles. One is שמואל סנדלר, היבטים אתנו-לאומיים ומדינתיים במדיניות החוץ של היישוב בנושא ארץ ישראל. Sorry, I won't translate it.
No
And
problem.
one of אסף זלצר, שמחה מתוזמנת, התגובות במרחב הציבורי של היישוב להחלטה על תוכנית החלוקה.
Okay.
And the two of them like deal with different aspects, but not of this exactly same topic, because one of them has to do with of the joy of the yeshuv in this time, which is
Yeah.
Asaf Zelter is saying that it wasn't so spontaneous. Like it's similar to Purim or any other Jewish celebrations, and
Mhm.
they were sharing like the announcement with radio. But it's different because in Tel Aviv it was radio, but in Jerusalem, let's say it was like door to door. People went door to door to announce everyone.
Right.
And the cultural basis is like the infrastructure of the joy and the way they celebrated the announcement.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
Gemini has, I gave them both the same prompt. Gemini was, I used the Gemini Free 5, which is the default. Like there's also Free 1, which is the light version, but I choose like the thinking level, which you can have normal and thinking, and I chose thinking because it's better for analyzing especially too long articles. And it did a nice job. I mean, it made a bit more elaboration than Notebook LM, and it gave me like a really good picture of the entire article. Notebook
Mhm.
LM was more concise, as Notebook LM is, and you can't really modify it in Notebook LM. Cowork, I also used Cowork, which is the cloud version for desktop applications, and he's still working on it. It seems like he's doing a bit more
Really?
robust
Wow.
job. Yeah. I used Opus 3.8, which is like the more thinking model. He did a bit more complicated steps and he doesn't have really out of the box solutions as Gemini or at least Google have. But let's see, maybe his finding will be extraordinary. Um, so yeah, this was my finding. Oh, and the second article dealt with the uh, not contradiction, but the combination of both the אסכולה מדינית מול אסכולה סוציולוגית of the Yeshuv, which means there's the people, which is the Jewish people that wants to, let's say, settle in Jerusalem, and it
Mhm.
comes to like it makes an impact in the war when you conquer fields that has to do with Jewish semantic. However, there are parts that like more in the Medina level
State.
of Ben
Yeah.
Gurion. Yeah, so that has to do with political applications rather than territory applications, let's say.
Okay. Okay. First of all, great work. I would suggest, and this is and Cam, this is also for you. You don't always have to use the same level of scrutiny using each LLM. That is, uh, if and it's good to use sometimes thinking mode or extra thinking mode or hyper thinking mode But usually when we're talking about uh, uh, synopsis, uh, it's better to let them do the job very easily because this, compared to other works, as opposed to generative AI work, this is a very passive work. That is, their algorithm is very, very capable when it comes to summarizing works. In fact, it was one of the first tasks LLMs were actually given. That was their first, one of the first intentions was to let them understand and synopsize texts. They do this with their eyes closed at 3 a.m. Okay. And so usually, if you are not analyzing a text in order to write a book on it, this is where you should let your AI tool do its job in the easiest way whatsoever. It will be much more effective, less electricity on your bill. I know that most of us aren't working with GPUs and creating, I mean, we don't have servers with terabytes of GPUs working on our AI. However, when it comes to these questions, if you would have given your Copilot an easy task and tell him to take it easy, you would have got the response in 10 seconds. Whereas when you tell them to think about it, then they think about it. Usually, when it comes to these specific tasks, the difference isn't that effective. Did you see, except for the obvious cosmetic aspects, did you see that they understood the papers differently?
So I think in the Gemini, especially with the more robust thinking, he understood the premises better and the sources better. Let's say the first
Okay.
article, he took both, just a second, two newspapers of the time, which is Hatzafa, the Davar. Also, archive pictures, documentary film, personal letters, news, and some protocols from this time. But Notebook LM mentioned only like let's see, um, three of these sources out of like the 6 or 7 sources Gemini found.
Okay. And still, when it comes to a synopsis, it's not necessarily what you're looking for. Because usually you're looking for just a way to understand this idea, to just understand what exactly the mission was, what are these papers talking about, and what I can deduce from their work. Okay, so of course I'm not criticizing you, did a great job, but this can be easier on your LLM and thus save you some more time. So generally speaking, you did overkill. Okay, your work was just a bit too good, and that's why it took it a bit more time, I think. Okay, but of course, great work. Cam, you want to share something?
I think he wrote that he's coming off of the bus, so we can't answer.
Oh no, but I thought he was okay. I thought he was already with us.
Maybe he's
Oh, to get off from the bus, I cannot answer. Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll do some of the work. I took 2 papers in English. One of them is called, just I'll open them. One is called The Success of the Zionist Strategy vis-a-vis UNESCO by Elad Ben-Dror. By the way, he is a researcher in Bar Ilan. And the other, Yitzhak Galnur, The Zionist Debates on Partition. I also gave them one. I gave to Gemini, and I gave them both. I'm sorry, to Gemini and to Copilot. Now, I found Copilot much better. I must say, mainly because Gemini did exactly what I told him to do, which is he brought me the main objective and key points. I can say the main objective, the article analyzes the political diplomatic strategies used by the Zionist leadership during the summer of 1947. It argues that UNESCO's ultimate recommendation to partition Palestine to Arab and Jewish states was a monumental success for Zionist diplomacy, driven heavily by a strategic and publicized meeting that has been largely overlooked in historical scholarship. That's exactly what the paper does in one passage. Same goes to the Zionist debates on partition, where he says the paper exposed how the Zionist movement approached territory boundaries and partition through three critical historic decision crossroads, 1919, 1937, 1947. It argues that Jewish attitudes toward territory historically balanced the duality between expressive and instrumental values. Ultimately, pre-1948 Zionist leadership consistently chose instrumental pragmatism, willing to trade territory in exchange for political sovereignty. Now, that's great, really. However, it did not take an extra mile. And when it comes to identifying the differences between these works, I find Gemini a bit lacking. Whereas Copilot, first of all, gave a much more analytical approach, with its key themes, but also gave me a very nice touch at the end. It says the following, and this is very important, and it regards what you said, Yotam. When it gave me a comparative synthesis of these both works, it said the following: shared insight. Both papers converge on a central claim. Zionist acceptance of partition was pragmatic, conditional, and strategic, not ideological resignation, which is fine. So it found me the basic ground between these two works. However, it gave me a table with key differences. Now, these differences are very nice. I would have found them themselves quite easily, but the integrated interpretation it gave me at the end is simply fantastic. Galno explains why Zionists accepted partition because of long-term prioritization of sovereignty, whereas Bendel explains how they translated this into success by effective diplomacy, messaging, and timing. So Galno explains ideological decision-making, whereas Bendel explains the byproducts. Together, they show that ideological pragmatism and diplomatic execution produced the 1947 outcome. And then it also gave me a bottom line. Now, what's important here is that essentially, and I think, Yotam, when you use the word prompt, that's very important. It's not that what Copilot gave me, Gemini wouldn't or couldn't have given me. Moreover, Gemini is facing some problems, and this is where exactly you can see it's working on cost cutting. Okay, because what exactly it did was, in fact, playing it safe. Gemini did not do any extra work, and to its defense, I must say, I didn't ask for any extra work. I just asked for a synopsis of these two works, whereas Copilot understood my perspective as a researcher. If I'm asking for a synopsis of two works, it appears that maybe I want to implement them, to use them in my works. It appears that I want to compare them. It's reasonably what I am trying to do. Now,
Do you usually use Copilot as
oh, great. Now,
Copilot?
no, I do not use Copilot, but as you said, since Copilot works with Claude,
No, with ChatGPT.
with ChatGPT, yeah, I'm sorry, but I have Copilot via my Microsoft 365 account, which is paid by the university. So I have a pro usage capacity, whereas in Gemini, I do not. Moreover, it knows I am working via a university institute. So it read me and it gave me what I wanted, what I needed, even if I didn't ask for it. Now, this is very crucial. First of all, what you implied is that if you train the LLM enough, and if you let it understand and learn more about you and what you need, then maybe it will have more capacity in or more incentive to please you and to give you exactly what you want and not spam you with what you don't want. Whereas when you work with a LLM that does not know you or that doesn't owe you anything because you're not paying it a cent, many times the reaction will be in this way. However, I do also think that all of these LLMs have very different algorithms, and not only we don't exactly know what they're going to do, many times their creators also do not know, and they themselves are trying to understand their creations. So, of course, it might be implied from how I requested and my background, and if it knows my background, whereas other LLMs do not know that. It could be. It could be the difference, but not necessarily. What I'm trying here to exemplify more than anything is the fact that even with these tools, our work is not done. Not only isn't it done, there is a lot of necessity for human intervention in order to achieve optimal results, or at least a threshold of acceptable results. Whereas many students fail to understand that and to comprehend the differences and to comprehend the capacity of the tools they have, and they are, I'll say it in Hebrew, mistapkim bemu'at. They accept what there is without knowing what they can achieve with these tools. So this is a very important part of the work that we must take into consideration, because I think that this really should be part of a more of an important decision when we use these tools. How exactly are we using them? And are we using them in the best way possible? Not necessarily always that is the result. Okay, so now that we have this, I want you to do the following. I want you to find a paper, a very short paper. You know what? I'll give you a paper. Okay. I'll share with you a paper of mine. I'll give you a short, brief paper just for it to be enough for us to work with. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, this is the first chapter. You're the first people, almost the first people to read this. The first chapter of a book I'm composing right now, okay? This chapter introduces the idea of Goral Agra, a form of lot casting used within modern rabbinic circles. I want you to read it without AI. Okay, take yourself 10 to 15 minutes. Just leaf through it, and I want you to find the three most important sentences in this paper. Okay, I think it's roughly, let me check. It's roughly, it's 21 pages, but okay, you don't have to read it all, just read it from section 5, Jewish bibliomancy before the modern period. Okay, from page 11, that is 10 pages. Okay. I want you to read it. Read from section 5, page 11. Okay, and find the 3 most important sentences without using AI tools. Okay? And so take a few minutes. If you need more, just tell me, and we'll meet again in a few moments. Okay? And you're the first critical group reading my work, so it might be important and interesting. You might find my writing stupid. I hope you don't. So just go ahead, okay? And then we'll convene again. How's it going? Interesting?
Yeah, it's a bit hard for me to read English as fast and as
Okay.
accurate in this amount of time, but yeah.
Okay. I can. Okay, can we gather ourselves? It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and what have we found?
I need to find the sentence. So first of all, the fact that the sentence was the Shirat Chalom
Yeah.
is not a ala babala process. Is like has its history based on Palestinian, Babylonian, Ashkenaz, and Egypt sources that represent a technique about this some sort of ritual and prayer.
So what's your sentence? What's your most prominent sentence in this chapter, in the second half of the chapter?
The sentence is the Shirat Chalom or dream request document from 10th century onwards in Jewish source from Palestine, Babylonia, Ashkenaz, and Egypt represent a technique for inducing a revelatory dream on a specific topic for ritual preparation and prayer.
Okay, great, great. Cam, do you have a specific sentence that you think is the most central?
Actually, I just let it, so I can
Okay,
figure out that. Yeah.
okay, okay. So now, Yotam, please go to the two LLMs you used. Tell them not to work too hard. Give them this section of the paper and ask them to give the most important sentence, one sentence, and explain why. And let's see. Okay, we're waiting.
Okay, so Gemini said the practice appears as a response to crisis, the collapse of the Eastern European Jewish world under the pressure of war and migration. He actually
Great.
took a paragraph, not a sentence, but so it goes on. But
Okay.
let's
Okay.
take this one.
What about Copilot?
Yeah, so I'll give it to Kork in a minute. Just a second. The Goral without the Gaon would not be the Goral. That is the argument the rest of this book makes.
Okay, great, great. So now that you see these two recommendations, are you happy with what you chose?
Yes?
Okay, okay. What about you, Cam? What do you think? These are very different examples.
Did you ask
Okay,
me?
I'll tell you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm asking you.
I usually, when I check the Gemini and the ChatGPT, but they are summarized something different way. So
Okay,
I use Notebook LM combined.
okay.
Yeah,
But
then
what is the core sentence?
Is core sentence Oracle authority in the bibliomancy is something this kind of things? I cannot figure out right now because this program is now doing. So just I got it
Okay.
on one sentence.
So in fact, we got 4 different major sentences in this 10 pages paper. Now, I'm the author. Okay. Now, usually within hermeneutic fields and circles, it doesn't matter who's the author. And my interpretation isn't better than any of you or the LLMs. Despite this, I would agree with, I think the first one you cited was Gemini, Yotam?
Yeah.
Gemini is right from my perspective. Now, the reason is I know why I wrote this chapter.
Mhm.
And for this chapter, he was kind of right with my understanding. However, Copilot was right if you ask me, this chapter is part of the book. What is the most important? So they're both right. Now, what Yotam said is also right if you ask me, in the eyes of a reader, an intelligent reader who does not have sufficient background on this field, I can understand why you would think that is the most important sentence.
Mhm.
However, from my perspective as an author, Gemini was right. As an editor, Copilot was right. But as a reader, I think you were right. So now, that's beautiful because what we see here is, and this is where I'm trying to take us all again and again to that exact point. It's not right or wrong. Okay. It's not like as if any of us have a better answer. And these LLMs are part of the dialogue that is evolving around us. Okay. We need to consider what they say. We need to understand it, but we don't need to accept it as if it is a complete truth. However, it can enrich us and it should enrich us. This could create a dialogue. For me, a very interesting dialogue can be, why did each and every human and LLM choose a different sentence? I think that's a very important and quite fascinating discussion. No one was wrong, yet the dialogue, I could talk about this for an hour, about this very interesting field of interpretation, okay, horizon of interpretation that has been evolving here. So, to sum everything up, I want us to use these tools, but we need to use them in a critical manner. We do not need to accept whatever they say. They usually do not hallucinate when it comes to specific material. If you'd ask them, please find me everything, they might hallucinate. Here, when you give them a concrete paper, 20, 25 pages, they do know how to write a synopsis. They do know how to create an abstract. However, it's not necessarily the truth. It's an aspect, a perspective. It's one way of thinking about stuff. It isn't necessarily the only way. Okay, we'll conclude here and we'll meet again next week. We'll have some more tasks and discussions. Okay, I wish you all a great week and very pleasant and safe, and be well.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.